Looking back, I can say without hesitation that it was the most terrifying night of my life. I was still in college, working part-time at a 24-hour gas station near the interstate. I usually worked the evening shifts, but every once in a while, they asked me to cover the overnight shift. I hated them. The hours dragged, the store was nearly empty, and the solitude was unsettling. But I needed the money. That night, a storm was rolling in as I arrived at work. The sky flashed with distant lightning, and the air was thick with the smell of rain. According to the weather report, it was going to be a bad one. At least that meant fewer people stopping by. I relieved my coworker, locked the door behind her, and settled in for what I thought would be an uneventful shift. For hours, no one came inside. The storm finally hit, hammering against the windows. I had a movie playing on my phone, half listening as I lost myself in a book. It was well past 1 a.m. when the gas station phone rang. I jumped at the sound. No one ever called this late. Reluctantly, I picked up the phone and said hello. A man's voice interrupted. He asked if we were open. His voice was deep, slow, almost too casual. I told him we were. He said good, then followed up with asking if we sold roses. I was confused. I asked him if he meant flowers. He said yes, roses. I told him we did not. The man sighed. He then said, "That's a shame. A woman as beautiful as you deserves flowers." I sat there in stunned silence, my skin prickling. I finally asked if he needed anything else, my voice tight. He said no, that was all. But before he hung up, he said one last thing. "See you later." The line went dead. I slowly placed the phone back down. It was probably just some over-friendly guy messing around, but something about the way he spoke sent a cold wave of unease through me. I told myself it was nothing, just some weirdo trying to flirt. Still, I made sure my pepper spray was within reach. After an hour passed, I had almost forgotten about the call, until the phone rang again. I hesitated before answering. It was him. He said he was bored and just wanted to chat. I told him I was at work and I just couldn't talk on the phone. He laughed and said he knew I wasn't busy. I told him it didn't matter and I needed to go. He said fine, but then asked me if he could at least know my name. I hesitated. There was no way I was about to tell this guy my name. I lied and told him it was Laura. He laughed like I had said the funniest joke in the world. Then he said something that made my stomach drop. He said, "Okay, well, have a good night, Aaron." That was my real name. I hung up immediately, my hands trembling. I told myself someone was playing a prank, maybe a friend messing with me. But deep down, I knew better. At 3 a.m., the phone rang again. I ignored it. The phone stopped ringing, and then it started again. I refused to pick up. Then my cell phone started to ring. I looked down. It was my mom. Relief washed over me. I answered immediately. I asked her what was wrong, assuming something had to be wrong if she was calling me this late. A deep chuckle came through the line. It was him. He said he had to call my cell because I wasn't answering the store phone. My breath caught in my throat. I asked him what he wanted. He said the only thing he wanted to do was bring me flowers. Silence stretched between us. He sighed and said if it would make me feel better, he would just leave them by the door. I felt like I was gonna be sick. I asked him if I let him drop off the flowers, would he leave me alone? Instead of answering the question, he said to go look at the front door of the gas station. I moved to the front door, my heart hammering. Outside, illuminated by the neon glow of the station light, was a bouquet of roses. A dozen blood-red roses, dripping with rain. I locked the door. The man laughed. He said locking the door would only help if he wasn't already inside the gas station. I spun around, scanning the store. It was empty. Was he bluffing? Trying to scare me into running outside? I started crying. I begged him to leave me alone. I told him I was going to hang up and call the police. He said if he wanted to hurt me, he already would have. His voice was eerily calm. He then said I shouldn't call the police. If I did, it wouldn't be good for me. I swallowed hard, torn between calling the cops and the terrifying thought that he might actually be inside. Then, headlights flashed through the rain. A car pulled into the lot. I nearly collapsed with relief. Then I heard the man say if I told anyone about what was going on, it would be bad for me and the person in the car. Then he hung up abruptly. I looked out the door and saw a man getting out of his car and running towards the door. He saw it was locked and said he needed to use the restroom. I hesitated only for a second before unlocking the door. The man stepped inside, thanking me, wiping the rain off his face. He said he had been driving all day and just needed to use the restroom. I nodded, barely listening as he made his way to the back. Then I saw it. Muddy footprints. I looked outside. The parking lot was all pavement. If this guy had been driving all day, where did the mud come from? The realization hit me like a punch to the stomach. It was him. The man from the phone was inside the store. I barely had time to react before the bathroom door creaked open. I dropped behind the aisle, forcing myself to breathe quietly. The man called out, saying hello. I stayed silent. I heard his footsteps getting closer. I looked up. He was standing at the end of the aisle, staring at me, smiling. I vaulted over the counter, grabbing the pepper spray just as he lunged. I sprayed him directly in the eyes. He screamed, clawing at his face. I shoved him aside and ran. I sprinted to my car, locking the doors as I fumbled with my phone. My hand shook as I dialed 911. The police arrived too late. He was gone. Luckily, the gas station had security cameras. Using this, they caught him a few days later. Apparently, he had done this before, calling women who worked late-night shifts, terrorizing them. But this time, they had evidence. I don't know what happened to him after that. I just hope that he stays locked away forever, because if he ever gets out, I know he'll come looking for me, and next time, I might not be so lucky. I used to be the kind of guy who scoffed at ghost stories, urban legends, and conspiracy theories. I believed in logic, science, and the idea that everything had an explanation. But when you experience something firsthand, something that shouldn't be real, it has a way of changing your mind fast. And it all started with a phone call. I had just gotten home from work when my phone started ringing. It was my best friend, Rob. We had been friends since elementary school, and we always had each other's backs. I answered in my usual way, but immediately I could tell something was off. Rob's voice was shaky. He said he needed my help and gave me an address, telling me to get there as soon as I could. Before I could ask what was going on, the line went dead. I tried calling back, straight to voicemail. I pulled up the address on GPS and my stomach sank. It was an old warehouse in the industrial part of town. That side of town had been half abandoned for years. Run-down buildings, busted out windows, and a reputation for being the kind of place you didn't go after dark. I couldn't imagine why Rob would be there. He wasn't involved in anything shady, at least not that I knew of. But if he needed me, I wasn't about to leave him hanging. I grabbed my keys and drove straight there. When I pulled up, I didn't see Rob's car. In fact, I didn't see any cars, no signs of life at all. The place looked abandoned, windows boarded up, weeds growing through the cracks in the pavement. But as I drove around back, I saw something that sent a chill through me. The warehouse doors were wide open. I parked, stepped out of the car, and called out for Rob. No answer. The silence made the whole place feel wrong. I was about to call his phone again when I heard it. A voice from deep inside the warehouse. It called my name, Adam. It sounded like Rob. I called back, asking where he was. The voice responded, calling my name again. But something about it made my skin crawl. No matter how far I walked inside, the voice never got any closer. It was like it was just always out of reach, leading me further and further in. I started getting a bad feeling. Rob loved pulling pranks, but this was going way too far. He had to be messing with me. Then I passed a door. It was open, leading to a stairwell going down. I shined my phone's flashlight into the darkness. The stairs went deeper than my light could reach. I called out for Rob again. I heard him respond. This time, the voice was closer. It came from down the stairs. I hesitated. Something inside me screamed, "Don't go down there." I told Rob to come up. There was nothing but silence. My instincts were in full-blown panic mode. Every part of me wanted to turn around and leave, but if Rob was actually in trouble, I couldn't just abandon him. Then my phone rang. I nearly dropped it from the shock. I pulled it out and looked at the screen. It was Rob. Heart pounding, I answered. I started yelling at Rob, telling him this wasn't funny anymore. He sounded confused. He said that he was at work and saw that he missed my call and was just calling me back. I froze. If Rob hadn't called me earlier, who did? And who was inside the warehouse with me? The voice called my name again. This time, it sounded wrong, distorted, too deep, almost inhuman. I ran. I didn't think. I just turned and sprinted out of there as fast as I could, back through the open warehouse doors and straight to my car. I fumbled with my keys, heart hammering in my chest, half expecting something to grab me from behind. I threw myself into the driver's seat, locked the doors, and tore out of the parking lot. I met up with Rob a few minutes later at the gas station. I told him everything, every last terrifying detail. He laughed. He didn't believe me. He was convinced someone was screwing with me and that maybe I was just freaked out by the place itself. He wanted to drive by the warehouse just to see it. I refused to go back in, but I agreed to show him where it was. When we pulled up to the warehouse, we weren't alone. Half a dozen blacked out SUVs and a large unmarked bus was parked outside the entrance. Men in dark uniforms were carrying something out of the warehouse. Something big. It was enclosed, but from little I could see, it looked like a cage. Rob and I looked at each other, neither of us saying a word. We left, and to this day, we have no idea what I encountered in that warehouse, or who those people were. We never told anyone. But sometimes, late at night, I wonder, how many other things are out there that we're not supposed to know about? College wasn't easy for me. My parents never had much money, so I had to pay for everything myself: tuition, books, rent, food. And no matter how many part-time jobs I picked up, it was never enough. Eventually, the debt caught up with me, and I had to drop out. I found work at a local factory, the kind of job that paid the bills but left you too exhausted to think about anything else. As if things weren't bad enough already, my phone broke. It wasn't even old, just a few months, and now completely useless. A new one was out of the question, so I started searching online. And that's when I found it, an iPhone, a few years old but in good condition. Only $100. The listing was vague, but it said it worked like new. I didn't have the luxury of being picky, so I bought it immediately. It arrived a few days later. I switched out my SIM card, and everything seemed fine. No issues setting it up, no weird glitches. I even told myself I'd gotten lucky. Then, a few days later, the first call came. The screen lit up with an unknown number, but the caller ID displayed a name, Caroline. I didn't know a Caroline. I answered anyway, but all I heard was static. Then, beneath the static, a muffled female voice. She was saying something, but I couldn't understand it. Before I could speak, the call ended. At first, I brushed it off as a wrong number, but the calls didn't stop. They started coming every few days. Always the same, static, a faint voice, then silence. Then they got more frequent. The more they happened, the clearer the voice became. And that's when I realized something that made my skin crawl. She could hear me. This wasn't some pre-recorded message. Whenever I spoke, the voice would pause, as if listening. But no matter how hard I tried, I could never make out what she was saying. That was until one night, when the static disappeared entirely. I had just gotten home from work when my phone rang. Caroline. I answered. This time, her voice was crystal clear. She said her name was Caroline, and she needed my help. She sounded desperate, terrified. Before I could respond, she told me I had to find Detective Hopkins at the Miami Police Department. She said I had to tell him the gun was in the vent in the bedroom, and the body was on Highway 41, mile marker 21. She said I had to tell him tonight, or it would be too late. I stood frozen, my mind racing. I asked her what she meant. She only said, "Trust me." Then the call ended. I just stood there, staring at my phone. Miami Police Department? I lived north of Atlanta. Everything in me screamed that this wasn't my problem and that I should just forget about it. But there was something about her voice, something so raw, so desperate, that I couldn't ignore. I sighed and dialed the Miami Police Department. After several minutes on hold, I finally got through to Detective Hopkins. I told him everything. There was a long silence. Then, in a cold, flat tone, he asked if I thought this was funny. I told him I had no idea what he was talking about. After another pause, he took my information and told me he'd be in touch. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, my phone rang. This time, it was Hopkins. He told me I needed to come to Miami immediately. I didn't know what to expect, but something about his voice told me it was serious. I made arrangements, took time off work, and drove down. When I got to the station, Hopkins was waiting for me. He didn't waste time. He asked for my phone, scrolling through the call history. His face darkened when he saw Caroline's name. Then he told me everything. A month ago, Caroline had disappeared. Hopkins had been certain her boyfriend had killed her, but had no evidence, no body, no murder weapon, and Caroline's phone was missing. Then, the night before, after I called with the information, he had gotten a new search warrant. They searched the boyfriend's house again. They found the gun in the vent in the bedroom, just like I told them. Then, they searched Highway 41, mile marker 21. They found Caroline's body. Caroline's boyfriend had recently sold a used iPhone. It was her phone. I sat there, trying to process it all. I finally asked the question that had been gnawing at my mind since the moment I first got that call. If Caroline was dead, who had been calling me? Hopkins just shook his head. He said he'd seen a lot in his years as a detective, but getting a call from a ghost was a first. I drove home the next day in complete silence. To this day, I can't explain it. But I know what I heard, and I know that because of Caroline's calls, her murderer was caught. I never got another strange call after that.